I believe we might be live right now. If so, welcome to the first episode of Across the Margin and welcome to the Party Pal Quarantine Recommends. I want to thank Osiris for hosting this show and thank you all for joining.
I believe we might be live right now.
Hold on one second.
If so,
let me
welcome
kill
to the
that.
first episode of Across the Margin.
That was hilarious. Um, so thank you again for joining.
Be live right now.
Well, that keeps
If
happening.
so, welcome to the first episode of Across the Margin and
There's so
welcome to
many
the
mics
Party
going on.
Pal Quarantine Recommends. I want to thank Osiris for hosting this show.
Apologize.
Thank you
One
all.
second,
Thank you
everybody.
again for joining. Be live right now.
Hold on one second. I'm
If
just
so,
gonna kill that.
welcome to the first episode of Across the Margin.
That was hilarious. It's still happening. Stop.
Joining.
Stop it. Here, I got links on links on links.
Across the Margin.
There we go. All right, everybody. Once again, apologies. So thank you, Osiris. Thank you all for joining. So first off, what is Across the Margin? It's a online arts and culture magazine where we publish a lot of fiction, a lot of poetry, a lot of entertainment stories about film and television. We talk politics. We're all over the place, tell a lot of life stories. And so Across the Margin, the podcast is just an extension of that, where we try to talk to as many artists, musicians, poets, authors, obviously, and just as many fun activists, fun, eccentric people who have great stories to tell. And so, welcome to the Party Pal. Conversely, is it's a film and television podcast where we do deep dives into television series or films, or talk to filmmakers, or talk about the filmmakers. So I am lucky enough to be a part of both those teams. So I'm kind of, what we decided to do here is kind of converge those two, and kind of talk about things that we could recommend that we watch, listen, read during this tough time. We know things aren't fun right now. It's a scary time. It's a very unique time, and not only do some of us, not all of us, have some time on their hands, but it's kind of special to get lost in something, like really, really deeply lost in something, and kind of forget about what's going on outside your windows. And that's what we hope to do here today, give you some things to get into and just forget about it. So, as we move forward, hopefully we won't have technical difficulties like today, but as we move forward, I'll bring in different team members from across the margin. Welcome to the party, pal. We'll bring in different authors and filmmakers and just people to talk to. So that'll be a lot of fun. I want to start today talking about some music, because music is something we talk about a whole lot at Across the Margin. And the first thing I want to tell you about is my quarantine happy place album, and that is Waxahachie's latest release. It's called Saint Cloud. It's incredible. Waxahachie's Alabama born singer songwriter. Her name is Katie Crutchfield, and she put out an album that I've just been putting on nonstop during this. She describes it as one of the favorite things she's ever made, and I couldn't agree more, even though all her other work is worth your time. It's a deeply, deeply personal, that's the album cover right there. It's a deeply, deeply personal album. It's honest, but it's got so much joy in it. And which is kind of wild, thinking about some of the themes in it. She talks about addiction. She's recently sober, and recovery. Codependency comes up a lot, and there's a lot of relatability in it as well. And then just sonically, it's just so good. Some of the tracks that I would recommend if you really want to try it out right quick is Fire is one that just gets a lot of burn on my end. Lilacs is another. Um, what's fun right now is music's coming at you um, in different ways as we deal with this. And one of those is it's kind of like live streams, just like this. And Katie can be found live streaming all the time, whether on her Instagram, or her boyfriend is another singer songwriter that I absolutely love, Kevin Morby. So they're in quarantine together, which is pretty wonderful for their fans, because they do live streams together, whether it's on his Instagram or her Instagram, or elsewhere. She's promoting St. Cloud in a real unique way, where she's on a lot of different I've seen her on a Pitchfork stream and just other outlets. So you could see them playing music. They've been doing a thing Thursday nights where they take requests, and both of them sing songs. It's real intimate when you get these live streams too. And this new way, which we're kind of getting music, really, really works for singers and songwriters and DJs too. So I really, really recommend following on Instagram and all the social media outlets, all your favorite artists, and just make sure that because you'll see them going live. They're going live all the time, and I'm sure they're doing it for cathartic release for themselves. But it's such a gift to be kind of drawn into their home and spend time with them. A lot of DJs, I like hip hop a lot, and a lot of DJs that I admire are going live just constantly, whether it's Questlove, DJ Premier, Static Selecta, Talib's doing a lot of stuff, and it's really, really great to see that. Questlove especially, he did this Prince-a-thon, a celebration of Prince music recently, which was just outstanding. Last night he was doing a Beastie Boys tribute, and his knowledge of music is just incredible. So again, I couldn't recommend more. Following as many artists as you can that you like, and they're dishing out the goods. But so let's get into the main event. I have someone with me here today, and I'm going to make sure this I hope this all works real well. We're doing our best here. This is day one, episode one. So I have let me see this. Hang tight. Oh wait, here we go. I can do this more. All right, I'm going to bring on an author of a book, of multiple books, that recently I did a deep dive on Across the Margin podcast with them about this book. This is 3 Seconds in Munich, the controversial 1972 Olympic basketball final. It's a great book. He also wrote Lamar Hunt, the Gentle Giant, who revolutionized professional sports. I have him with me here today. Let me get him on here. Dave, do I got you?
Hi, Mike.
I see you. Fantastic. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for joining us. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. So I said a little bit about the book, but I knew I had you here. So, you can, do you mind telling us a little bit about what 3 Seconds in Munich is?
Yeah, it's basically about a very controversial gold medal game in the Olympics between the USA and the USSR. And the USA had won every gold medal in the Olympics since 1936. And in this final, the USSR won by 1 point, but it was very controversial and corrupt at the end, as you can tell also by the subhead in the title of the book.
Yeah. And also by the picture on the front of the book. There's
right. Yeah. You see how upset they are after the game.
I absolutely love that picture. And I love this book. It was so deeply researched. There was so much going on. One thing that was so fascinating about it was just the backdrop of the games that were going on, and it was in Germany. And I was wondering if you could speak on that a little bit about what else was going on besides this controversial game.
Definitely. The previous Olympic Games in Germany had been held in 1936, and Hitler basically ran those games in Berlin. So the ones in Munich in 72, they were known at first as the Games of Peace and Joy. They didn't want a lot of security around. They wanted everyone to be happy. But the lack of security also led to 11 Israeli athletes and coaches being taken hostage and eventually being killed. So that happened 4 or 5 days before this gold medal game.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. One of the players even, I think does the book start with that, where he, I forget the exact player, but he actually sees the Israelis being marched out by at gunpoint, and tears are welling up inside their mask, and he comes face to face with it.
You're exactly right. It was Tommy Burleson from North Carolina State. And he was sneaking back into the Olympic Village through a route he had always taken through an underground garage. And before he knew it, a German soldier had placed a gun to his head and said, you know, the hostages are coming out right now. You're here at the wrong time. And Burleson could hear the hostages and the terrorists going past him as he was looking at a wall. And the hostages were all crying. And even 40 years later, when he told that story, he burst into tears.
Yeah, I can't imagine how much the whole thing must have affected him and just affected them. I know we talked about in the podcast episode that you know there was a real awakening to kind of the ills of the world. Not only were they absolutely screwed in the game, but also just like the corruption they came to know, and then also this worldly event which affected everybody. It's wild.
Right. Yeah. It's, I mean, that's to me was the real drama of the whole thing. I mean, you have this first time event at the Olympics, terrorism, and it was, you know, watched around the world on TV. And then you have this corrupt, controversial basketball game where the US loses. And not only that, at the end of it, you have them rejecting their silver medals, the only athletes in Olympic history to reject their medals. And
Yeah.
they have until this day, although they've been offered these medals again and again.
Well, that's what's neat too, is also it was a book about you know, them standing up for what they believed in ultimately, and what they
Right.
thought was right, because it wasn't easy for them, was it, to make that decision? There was a lot of pushback, right?
There was a lot of pushback. You know, some of the U.S. Olympic Committee people thought they'd be kicked out of the Olympics forever, and even Tom McMillan's coach, lefty Drizel from Maryland, he was against it. So you know, and they weren't sure if the people in America would respond to them the way they did in 1968 to the two athletes who did the Black Power salute.
Yeah. Yep.
But it ended up, you know, they didn't get much harsh feedback overall. In fact, they got a lot of praise for it, and they really have stood on principle. And in fact, two of them at this point have in their wills that their descendants cannot accept the medals as well. So they take it very seriously.
Very, very seriously. When we're gone, you can't go get that gold medal and try to
Right.
cash in. I want to ask you just one more specific question, because the controversy that is at the heart of this book on basketball speaking is very, very fascinating. And there's and you mentioned two things that kind of were the crux of what went wrong or why it was controversial in your introduction. And if you could speak on that a little bit, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. Well, the U.S. was behind the whole game. And then with 10 seconds to go, Doug Collins stole a pass and was fouled as he tried to make a layup. And he was fouled so badly, he hit the floor, went under the basketball stanchion.
Mhm.
He was very out of it, but he took the two free throws, sank them both, and the U.S. had a 1-point lead with 3 seconds to go. And the Soviets inbounded the ball. And then all of a sudden, with 1 second to go, there was chaos at the scores table. A referee called a timeout, and a Soviet coach said he had called timeout before Collins' free throw, but it hadn't been accepted, and so no timeout was called. And then out from the stands came R. William Jones. He was the head of international basketball, and he demanded that 3 seconds be put on the clock instead of 1 second, which remained. And no one understood why he would do this, because he had no authority over the game despite his high level position. The referees had authority. So the Soviets inbounded the ball again. They missed a shot from about 80 feet, and the US players celebrated. They were so excited to win their 8th straight gold medal. But all of a sudden, the public address announcer said there are 3 seconds left on the clock. So, I mean, you know, it was becoming pure chaos. Hank Iva, the coach, couldn't believe what was happening. No one could, really. And the Soviets got another chance. But this time, Tom McMillan, who had been guarding the Soviet inbounder, was told by a referee from Bulgaria, basically a Soviet satellite state, that he had to move away from the inbounder. And there was no rule that he couldn't guard the inbounder. But this let the inbounder throw a pass all the way down the court. He was told, you know, he was unimpeded in his view. And Soviet player Alexander Belov grabbed the pass, put the ball in, and the Soviets won the game 51-50.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's Your book does such a good job of describing in detail what happened during that game, and then just all the fallout, of course, but also what it meant for international basketball moving forward, which was fascinating. And I mean, it kind of gave it a bump that changed everything, changed the NBA right now too, which is wild. Really cool. Real quick, what's this other book about? Just while we got you, if we're gonna shine a light on Lamar Hunt.
Lamar Hunt. So I wrote that about 10 years ago. He was an incredible sports entrepreneur. He started the American Football League and helped it merge with the NFL.
Yep.
He owned the Kansas City Chiefs forever. And he started Major League Soccer. He was involved with North American Soccer League before that.
Wow.
He had a pro tennis tour. He owned a part of the Chicago Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
He was just sort of a major sportsman, but he was also a very humble man. He wasn't, like a Jerry Jones type. He was very quiet. He wouldn't have been on his $250 million yacht during the NFL draft.
No. I don't know if I would be that humble. I know I've been a while ago, but doing everything he did. Dave, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming here today, but also being on the podcast. If anyone wants to learn more about the book, you can listen to episode 77 Across the Margin podcast, where me and Dave really get into it. And of course, read the book. It's really great. So thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. Let me stop that. Let me do a quick little change. All right. So now that was fun. That
was great. Thank you.
Yep, of course. And hold on. I'm going to turn this off. There we go.
Probably about time I had Zoom anyway. So.
Okay. So I want to tell you about another book, and it's something we did. Another episode 78 of Across the Margin, the podcast. Sorry about any little technical difficulties. I'm getting used to this whole thing. But I talked to author, Supreme Court journalist, and New York Times editorial board member Jesse Wegman on the most recent Across the Margin, the podcast. He wrote the book called Let the People Pick the President. And something I've been incredibly fascinated with and frustrated with for decades, really, is the Electoral College. And so when I came upon his book, I scooped it up immediately. That's just right there. And that's the book right there. And scooped it up immediately. And this book is incredible. It breaks down the entire history of the when they formed the idea of the Electoral College. And it's not, they kind of put it together on the run. You'll read it wasn't as this brilliant idea that sometimes you're taught in high school. So it goes through the history of it. It spells a lot of myths that are out there about, what people think the advantages of it are. And also, it takes a cool look at what, it would mean if we actually use the popular vote to pick the president, which I could not be more into and for. And he offers or shines a light on a solution that's out there and how we could eventually get to using the popular vote. And it was an important, I feel like it's an important book. I think it's a important conversation that we really need to be having more, especially in light that 2 times within, very recent history, the Electoral College has been at odds with the popular vote. And that's, I think that's concerning. And, the goal is that one day we can live in a country where each of our votes matter and democracy, our faith in democracy is restored. And so this book is kind of the gateway to that. So grab it, episode 78 of Across the Margin, the podcast. You can learn a whole lot more about it. Let's talk a little bit of film real quick, and film and television, kind of the welcome to the party pal part of the show. So we've been going pretty hard at welcome to the party pal. We're putting out a bunch of episodes. The team's been growing over there, which is tons of fun. And we just know a lot of people are watching a lot of stuff, and we want to be in on that conversation. We did it recently in episode about Ozark season 3, a deep dive into Tiger King. We couldn't help ourselves. Star Trek Picard, which was a great episode. I had Jonathan Hart on, who's on the Broke Down podcast and Helping Friendly Pod also on Osiris. Great podcast. We did one on Curb Your Enthusiasm season 10. The movie 1917, which you should watch it, even though it's a big cinematic adventure, and it really works so well on the big screen. It still comes off incredibly. It's amazing. You should jump into that. But a film that really affected me within the last few weeks, and I fell in love with, it's streaming now on Prime, is The Last Black Man in San Francisco. You can kind of see the movie poster a little bit behind me. And it's directed by Joe Talbot, and Jimmy Fails helps him write it. And it's a movie. It's about a dreamer, and it. I can get into the minutia of what it's about, because it's basically just this man who is trying to buy a home that was built by someone in his family in San Francisco. But I don't think that's like the point I want to get across here. Is what it's about. It's more about the heart of the movie. It's about it's I guess what it amounts to is it's a love letter to San Francisco, but maybe not the San Francisco that exists now, a San Francisco of yore. And it touches on a lot of deep themes. One of those is wealth inequality. It's another movie that came out last year, like Parasite, which is incredible, that touched on and got into what happens and the effects of the wealth inequality that's happening across the globe, as we saw in Parasite. The cinematography is incredible. It's Adam Newport Barra. You can almost stop every frame and just take a picture, and it's just, you'll have a gorgeous picture right there. It's moving. It's absolutely wholly unique, and it's just awesome. So, like I said, it's streaming on Amazon Prime. Peep that. So I forgot one thing when I was talking about music, and there's a lot of different kind of couch tour options out there, and I find myself almost every night streaming something. And I talked about how you can follow your artist live, but a lot of different options out there. I have my little list here for the upcoming week, and you can see that Saturday I leave open always. That's because I am always looking for all the DJs or whatever jumping on to my Instagram, and I know something awesome is gonna pop up. Sunday night, something really cool is going on. It's called Live from Out There. It's a tribute to Jerry Garcia and Robert Hunter, the lyricist Robert Hunter. It's at 9:15 on Nugs TV. It's got a whole slew of amazing musicians: Oteil Burbridge, Jennifer Hartswick, His Golden Messenger, George Porter Jr., Keller Williams, Corinna Rickman, Eric Krasno, who has an amazing new podcast on the Osiris Network, just to name a few. I'm going to be watching that Sunday, 9:15 p.m. Monday. The National, a band I'm infatuated with. They've been running former shows, their concerts at 5 p.m., which is great. And usually the Help and Friendly pod from the Osiris Network is going live that night these days on this Osiris YouTube channel right here. Tuesday nights is Dinner and a Movie. That is what Fish does. Fish has been choosing some choice concerts from recent era and playing it, and thousands of fans have been watching it kind of, apart and together. It's just fun, and it's called Dinner and a Movie because they're always giving out a recipe that someone could make while before indulging in the concerts. They've been picking great ones. It's been a lot of fun. Wednesday night, there's a series that I've been keeping an eye on called Pickathon Presents, and on this Wednesday they're featuring Dinosaur Jr. And then also Wednesday night, if you like the band Weend, which I do very, very much, Godwin Evan, also on Osiris, they're live on this Osiris YouTube channel at 9:30 p.m. Thursday night, I have listed here G Love is I've listed here both G Love and Warren Treaty that night. Both of them have been featured. I interviewed both of them on Across the Margin podcast. So there's episodes out there about that. But G Love is live on Insta at 5 p.m. on Thursday. Warren Treaty. You got another cool series is A Concert a Day, and Warren Treaty is being featured there Thursday. Friday night, singer-songwriter Margot Price is always doing something on YouTube. Runaway Horse Radio is what she calls it. That's at 9 p.m. Tonight. And I think every Saturday, on the Osiris YouTube channel. So following this in a few hours is Uncle Jesse's Quarantine. It's he's a DJ. He's on from 6 to 8, and there's 2 other DJs follow him. That's worth getting involved in. So that's what I got for today. We're just getting started. I'll be back here next week at the same time. Gonna got some good guests lined up. Gonna involve more of the team. So until then, stay safe, stay low, and listen to lots of Grateful Dead. It's helping me. And thank you so much for joining.